In this video, we're going to cover HTML5, and that's Sololearn lessons 26 through 44. We may end up breaking it up if this video's taking a long time into 2 videos, but we'll see. So, introduction. So it's just introducing one now in HTML5. We add this doc type. So let's go ahead and do that. Exclamation point HTML. And then also, so in our head, go ahead and throw in set equals 8. Okay. And it's just talking about there's lots of new things that you can do in HTML5 you couldn't do before HTML5. So we'll keep moving along. So it's just talking about the different things that are available in HTML5 and where you can use these, different things. Don't worry too much about feeling like you need to memorize all this or anything. It's just kind of giving you some information and just showing how there's like some overlap and stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about all these things later, so don't beat yourself up on that section. So this is just talking about the page structure for HTML5, how generally, you're going to put the header up top, which is going to be like your, well, like it's saying like your logo and like the name of your company or for you like, your name, website, like in big bold title and everything. And then the nav where like you can click to different things. So like on Purple Heart website, like, the nav bar up here is like the nav section. And article, you mostly use that for if you're like writing a blog or something. You don't necessarily need to use that, and you can like section things off into different sections. So like on like the Purple Heart website, I've got like these different sections. Like here's a section, here's a section, just to keep things separate. But really, to be perfectly honest, like all these things, like we used to just throw everything in divs. And so don't beat yourself up about like having to use the right headers and stuff. I mean, it's good to understand like knowing where you're putting things, and the side, off to the right or left or whatever, like this. And it actually doesn't do it for you automatically. You're gonna have to use CSS to position it anyway, so don't worry too much about that. And then the footer, like generally, at the bottom is your little footer section. So it's just talking about that. It's just talking about classifying things so it's more clear where you're putting your different data. But like honestly, you could put everything in divs. Like it doesn't have to be in those specific sections. I think it just, so this is just talking about stuff I just kind of talked about. Like see how like it used, just so that when you end up styling your CSS, you know, you can just, you know, style your header section, and you'll learn more about that later. So don't beat yourself up on this. Yeah, just your nav. I was talking about. I mean, let's go ahead and throw a nav in there. So look at we'll throw the nav like all the way at the top. And again, it doesn't really do anything until you actually style it. And you know, I don't even want to put I'm not even going to put the, you know, the list part on here, the unordered list. We'll just throw literally just the A tag. So again, where your, you know, H reference, where you're pointing to, talked about that before. Go to test page. So now, you know, go to test page. And then so again, your home page, there's no slash anything after it. So it's just, you can just put just the slash and it'll navigate to your home page. And then let's go ahead and copy this nav and throw it in this, because this is where the test is pointing to. So we can go to our home page, or we can go to the test page and then navigate back. Click that, no, so nope, you're already there. So, and you'll get into styling your nav later. So it can like look cool like this or whatever you want. You know, however you want it to look, but you know, for now, I'll just throw that in there. And then a footer. I mean, you could throw a footer in there if you want, but until you style it, it's not gonna look like anything other than just yeah, it's just gonna look like text. So I'm not gonna learn styling until you get to this is the footer. So like it's just plain. It's just a place. So where you know you're gonna reference it, and you can style it, you know, separately by referencing the footer section. All right. Okay, and again, article, like it's just something just like with referencing your nav or referencing your footer. It's just something to reference, a different tag to reference, just like, I mean, you could still just use a div to, and then, you know, add an ID, and you'll learn about that in CSS. So, and usually this is just for like, you know, blogs or something like that, but, you know, they created a whole tag for it. Section, same thing, just if you want to, it's just a tag that's so that you can know the different sections and whatnot, and then you could, you know, name the different sections different things. And then your aside is generally like something you're going to have like off to the right or whatnot. And then you'll style it with CSS to make it go off to the right. So don't worry about it, any of this pretty much for now, other than knowing it exists and you can use it, and it's where it's referencing stuff. Audio element. Okay, so let's go ahead and demonstrate this. So right here at the top, let's go ahead and throw so your source is where you have it saved. And so I saved in here an audio file in the static folder. You're always going to put it in the static folder because it's not going to be able to reference stuff not in your static folder. So go ahead and copy the rep. So if you right click, or with Mac, control click to do copy relative path, it'll do it all for you. Or you could just type out, you know, since it's in the static folder, static / and then the name of the file. But it has to be, you know, the case and everything exactly as it is. And then this audio element not support, that's just what's going to print to the screen if it doesn't work. So and then close that audio tag. So we're doing it as currently doing it as controls. So now if somebody wants to click it to listen, it's just the. All right, so we are going to. It's me from the first video, or one of the videos. Yeah. Anyway, so that's just. So that's with, if you do controls, you know, then they can see it and click it and stuff. But they can also, and you could, if like you want to add multiple audio types, like you could add MP3 or this OGG, you know, the file type, just how it's saved, so that, you know, you can, if certain browsers will only like play like MP3 or whatever, so you could add multiple different file types to make sure it does work. And if it tries, at first it's going to try this one, that doesn't work, it'll go to this one, that doesn't work, it's just going to print to the screen, audio element not supported by your browser, or whatever you put here, put get a new browser, I don't know, whatever you want to type, that's what's going to print there. And but you can, so right now it's set to controls, but instead we could have it on autoplay, or even autoplay and loop, so it just goes over and over. So instead of them clicking it, like as soon as they go to the page, you can't hear it. Should be playing. Maybe I have it set to like block, stuff like that. Oh, I still need controls. Oops. It's not working on my browser, but all right. So I don't think I have it enabled. It probably blocks it. But yeah, if you can have it autoplay and then it'll just come on like automatically. And you can also have it on a loop. So if we added autoplay, we added loop, then I mean it would just automatically play over and over again. So like if you just have a short little song thing or whatever you want to play, as soon as they come on, it could do that. But it's not working on mine, but that's fine. Let's try a different browser. It's still not wanting to do it. That's fine. Cool. All right, so now video element, that's pretty similar to your audio element. But let's go ahead and throw this at the bottom, because unless I style it, it's going to be big. So again, I put I drug a MP4 video into my static folder. So if you want to try this out, just put the video, it's MP4, into your static folder, and then always close the tag. And then again, with Visual Studio, you can just right click, copy relative path, paste that in there. And then right equals video / MP4. It won't play it. So yeah, so just type down here, video is not supported. And I'm not going to add the other types of videos. I'm just going to add just that one. Save that. And then if you see, scroll down to the bottom.
So we are going to pick up where we left off.
Oh, of course, the autoplay is now working. Pause that. But anyway, and click the video.
So today we're going to be covering HTML basics.
Just showing the old video.
Lesson 6 through 24.
Pause that. And again, you could style the size and everything with the CSS size you want your video, and we'll get into that later. And again, you could also do, autoplay and loop, just like with the audio. Let me get rid of this autoplay though. So now that it's working, we're gonna keep playing. So this is just like progress element. Like if you're really not gonna usually use this, but I mean you could, but like usually you just wait for stuff to upload, and you're not gonna take the time to add this progress bar. But let's go ahead and add it just so you can see it. Again, the status is just regular text you throw anywhere, and then we'll throw a progress in 0, max equals 100, value equals 35. And then close your progress tag. And then like you would update this value with doing some backend coding or some JavaScript coding, but we're not gonna get to that. So see, it's got the little status progress, that much so far. Like, well, you could use the progress bar is like if you're like clicking through, like they're going from page to page, or if they're sending it to the same page, but like it's cycling through an algorithm and update. Yeah, so actually that could be a useful thing for the progress bar, like down at the bottom. So like if we sent this to like the test, like if they answered a question, and then let's copy this to let's close these. Index. Let's change it to so now, all right, so here's their progress bar, and like if you're sending it to the to the next page because they've gotten further along and completing whatever they're doing. Not save it. Oh, I put that in, not in the post section. That in the get section. Hold on. Like if they're filling out forms or whatever, and you're going, like they've got like 4 pages to go to, like, and let's say they're on like the 3rd page or whatever of answering questions. Like, let's just refresh that. So, you know, it's just showing, okay, you got further, you only got this much more to go till you're done filling out this form or whatnot. That'd be a useful thing for the progress bar, I guess. Okay, it's just, don't feel you need to know this stuff because this is talking about stuff with JavaScript, and you're going to learn more about JavaScript later. They're just kind of telling it to you now so that you know it's available, but I'll explain what sessions are and what, you know, local storage. Yeah, it says right there, you know, sessions, as soon as you close the browser, it's gone. Local storage, you know, it saves, you know, to their hard drive so that they can keep going with different stuff that you're saving. But sessions, you can also do sessions that are sessions for your what's it called, for your web server, that to track different users stuff, and that can save until your session expires, and that's actually sent to them. It's more secure because it's a session for on your actual um, web server that's keeping that data. But anyway, long story short, you don't need to know this stuff yet until you get into um, you know, JavaScript, and more, even more so Python. I mean, you won't use this type of session, but you'll use sessions in Python to just save users info. So like they log in and it saves their member ID, and then you go to another page like the officer portal page, and like it's still got that saved to use on that page, or like save their zip code or whatever, their name or whatever info you want to save about them to be able to use on different pages is the stuff that you save in session data and, you know, local data. And this is just how to do it, and it's showing you, but I'm not going to cover this because this is in JavaScript. You're not gonna, you're not to the point where you're going to be using this. I mean, I'll go over the like alert box real quick, just because that's like an easy thing. You know, you can see. Well, they're not even talking about. Nah, never mind. That's JavaScript. We don't need to talk about that yet. So don't worry about that. You'll learn it later. Okay. This is just saying you can get geolocation, doing, you know, navigator, geolocation, get current location if they're willing to save it with you. But again, like it says right here, you have to know JavaScript to understand how to use it. So you'll learn that later, but just know it's one of the things that you can do now with HTML5 that you couldn't before. So don't feel like you need to test that out yet. Drag and drop. So again, this is also JavaScript stuff, but they're just letting you know. So don't feel like you need to test this either till you get to that. But they're just letting you know that this is something you can do with HTML5, and it's like cool because it's more like a computer program on the web pages as opposed to, you know, just text web pages. It's just saying you can draw. Yeah, so. I mean, we can go ahead and throw one of these in here just as a demonstration. Now, don't even worry about this actually. Because you'd be doing this type of stuff you'd be doing once you get to CSS. You're not going to usually use this. But anyway, it's just letting you know what's available. Same thing. Again, this uses JavaScript, so don't worry too much about this yet. I mean, there's lots of cool stuff you can do with canvases. But for now, don't worry about it. And this is just talking about the different. If you want to try and play around with it, you can play around with it, but if you do want to know about this now and early, just ask me in the comments or message me, and I'm happy to help. Okay, so this part is really important for HTML. So they're just talking about the different things you can do with HTML with forms, and forms are something you'll use all the time. So let's go ahead and throw a label on it. So as opposed to just doing, adding the text, as opposed to just adding, the text like right here, mail, all right? Go ahead and make it a label.
And so sometimes we can be really ineffective at asking for other people what we want by making demands.
Okay, so as opposed to just adding text on your form, we've got right here, we can add labels. So and normally, well, I'll get into doing IDs for the labels next, but add some text. But actually, generally, what you'll end up doing with your labels is you'll, like if it was a checkbox or something, you'll wrap it around your input, and then you do label for, I don't know if do they cover this in Sololearn? Label for, yeah, they do. Okay. Label for Brandon's input. And, I mean, it's not really gonna change anything around really, but that's just generally how you do it. Because then when you style it, it just styles better that way. And like you could have this text over here too. Put it on, the other side or whatnot. Like if this was a checkbox or something, you're like, here. And so autofocus is, it just, when you get to that, it's going to automatically go to that. So like, it auto focused down to like start typing, so they don't even have to click in it. It goes right to that. Placeholders are super useful, like as opposed to like even having a label. Placeholder equals text. And then like in there, it adds the text, but I usually just add it on the outside instead of placeholders, but you could do that as well. You just got to make sure it works on all the different browsers and whatnot. Required, like if they can't submit the form before adding the text, if you just like throw in the required tag in there. Or not tag, but you just throw required in there in the tag. So fresh auto focuses, and I'm like, no, I don't want to type anything. You have to. So for to let it submit the form. And this is covering like if you want them to be able to search stuff, like kind of like how Google auto pops up stuff, you can have it pop up with the data list. So like let's do that. Where is it? So just autofill some options. unless there's usually only a few options, you usually don't do this. You just let them type out the stuff. But let's see. It's just got, they can either type it or they can choose, you know, one of the options, or like as they start to type, like, yeah, it's gonna fill in there. So, but again, you're not gonna do that unless there's usually just a few options that they'll choose to save them time, because who knows how many, you know, options there generally are. So yeah, and this is just talking about like the other types of things. And I covered that earlier when I showed you like on W3 schools, different things like, you know, email, telephone, URL, like the different types of inputs that people could use. And like with email, it'll force them to add email. So like, I go down here, I say blah, blah, blah. Try and submit it. Nope, it's an email address because there's no at. Oh. And that is it for HTML. Yeah, I will cover a little bit of this stuff. I kind of skipped through this. I'm not going to cover the stuff that's like JavaScript stuff, like Canvas. You'll get to that with when you get to JavaScript, but I will cover a little more on you know, SVG, because I mean that is something that's useful. So like if you're gonna, this is just saying you can import SVG images in the image tag. The other way to do it, more likely way you're going to do it, is just to go ahead and create an SVG element, you know, tag yourself for like drawing stuff and whatnot. So I think that's way too big. I don't know why they're trying to do 2000. But then it's just saying, you know, how it's gonna draw things and whatnot. But let's go ahead and refresh that. So you got a nice little circle and stuff. So like you can draw stuff with this, and so yeah, this explains what the different stuff is right there. That's instead of a circle, if you just want to do a rectangle. So, all right, well, that is it for HTML. Next, we'll be covering CSS, where you'll be doing a lot more actual styling of your website. And before then, post just the text of your resume into your resume site, and don't worry about how it looks and the styling, figure that out later. All right.